Okay.
She knows how to do that.
Good evening to everybody. I am Commissioner Carney, number 3, and I will be taking Mr. Oquendo's seat for the night.
You are the acting chair, Ms. Carney, and the first order is the pledge.
I am the acting chair, and everything else that has to be done for it.
So we stand for the pledge, do we not?
Correct.
Thank you. Okay. Ms. Carney, you call for the roll.
Roll.
Call.
Chair Oquendo will have an unexcused absence for the record. Vice Chair Carney.
Here.
Member Lantry.
Present.
Member Rivera will have an excused absence for the record. Member Grigsby.
Present.
Member Douglas.
Present.
And Member Alexander.
Present.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum, and although I don't see it on the agenda, there were minutes from February that were in my packet that I'm assuming were in
Yes.
y'all's packet for consideration and approval. That's the meeting of February 21st of this year. Is it on there? Did I miss it? Okay, I apologize. All right. Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. New glasses.
I have one, sir.
So you would call for a motion for addressing the minutes?
I call a motion to accept the meeting notes
Just-
and everything for February 21st, 2023.
So moved.
Is there a
I'll second.
second? Mr. Lantry?
Second, yes.
Mr. Lantry seconds. All right, just call for a vote.
Call for a vote.
All in favor of the motion?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Yep. You're all voting members tonight, by the way. Motion passes 5-0, so the minutes are approved from February 21st, 2023 unanimously. Thank you, Madam Chair. So Ms. Streeter will call the first case for you.
Yes, and I believe we are reading them together. Is that correct? Okay. So new business, we have ordinance number 2023-20, Heritage Crossing Comp Plan Amendment, DRC case number CPA 22-00009, and ordinance number 2023-21, Heritage Crossing PUD Zoning and Preliminary Master Plan, DRC case PUD 2022-00003.
Ms. Grigsby, this would be when you would wrap. Ms. May, I apologize. Before you begin your presentation, I believe Ms. Grigsby wanted to make a disclosure to the commission and to the public.
Yes, I wanted to make sure the public, the commission, and the staff knew that a citizen contacted me regarding this with a couple of questions. So if we do not address them in there, I can bring the questions up during the
Yeah,
question period.
What you'd want to do is just read the contact you received and the interaction so that the city staff and the public knows what was submitted to you.
All right, do I need to state the name of the,
Yeah,
Citizen?
you can read that it was a member of the public, and you should identify
okay,
who it was.
a
and-
member of the public, Sam Gilkey, had sent me this correspondence. This is upcoming at the April meeting. The development can't be stopped, but hopefully the impact on surrounding areas can be minimized. The flood of traffic into 2-lane streets might be foremost, and the developer should bear some of the cost of improving the streets. Since we live on the north side of the PUD, I am specifically concerned about a drainage ditch that separates the two properties. Who is responsible for cleaning the ditch and keeping it clear? At the times, the school board maintained it, but apparently in past years has stopped. It may be the ditch is in both properties. The city says it's not theirs. Would you bring this up for some clarification? Thank you. And it's ordinance number 2023-21, Heritage Crossing, PUD zoning and preliminary master plan. Request, the applicant is requesting, oh, it's just reiterating what the request was.
Thank you so much. I did go ahead and make notes of those, so hopefully we'll address those tonight, okay? Yeah.
Thank you.
Good evening, Tisha Manning, Senior Planner for Community Development, and I will be presenting tonight the Comprehensive Plan Amendment as well as the PUD Zoning and Preliminary Master Plan for Heritage Crossing. It is approximately 25.69 acres located north of 4th Street, west of Columbia Avenue, south of Cross Creek Court, and east of Brown Chapel Road. The applicant is requesting approval, as well as the city is recommending approval. The aerial there just generally shows you where it is located, but you'll see that part of the school board parcel is not going to be the entire parcel. It's only going to be a small portion of it, and that's going to be used for access to the larger parcel here. So the project description, the applicant is proposing to develop 198 single-family attached residential units on that larger parcel. It will have a stormwater management pond located in the center of the development, which is going to be created as a passive park for the development with some benches. They will also have a recreation area that's going to have, a pool, cabana, barbecue grills, and that stormwater management in the middle is going to also be surrounded by a pedestrian trail. So here is the preliminary master plan. Again, it shows the stormwater management pond in the middle that is going to be surrounded by the pedestrian trail that is going to connect to the internal sidewalk system of the development. They will have some front-loaded as well as some rear-loaded units. It does have the recreation area here, as well as another park here. And the dotted lines, you can not really make them out, but it's going to go around the full stormwater management. And then they will also have some additional parking areas that they're going to construct and develop for parking lots for the development as well. Here you'll see where coming out of their development is going to be the road that's going to lead to Columbia. And then they'll also have access that's going to go down to 5th Street. This is some residential, some product elevations. This is all in the preliminary stage, but it does kind of give you an idea of how the product is going to look at development. We are going to also be asking the applicant to comply with the new residential architectural standards that were just passed. So I'll go into that a little bit more in a minute, but this is just, again, preliminary, but just to show you some of the elevations, the one-car garage, and then they'll also have, again, some rear-loaded product. It does meet the strategic plan goals of growth management. And staff and DRC do recommend approval. We recommend those approvals with conditions, again, as stated, that the actual elevations meet the material requirement of the newly passed ordinance 2023-03 of the residential architectural standards. And I'm going to go ahead and read into, for the record, those material requirements. So it's going to be minimum and maximum percentage of specific facade materials for attached single family, including townhomes and duplexes. It starts off with number 1, the minimum percentage of stone and or brick in a primary facade is 20%, and the minimum percentage of stone and or brick in a secondary facade is 10%. Number 2, the maximum percentage for stucco in a primary facade is 60%, and the maximum percentage for wood panel, including painted or stained lap horizontal siding, vertical board, batten wood siding, is 60%. Number 3, the maximum percentage for stucco in a secondary facade is 70%, and the maximum percentage for wood panel, including painted or stained lap horizontal siding, vertical board, batten wood siding, is 70%. Those percentage calculations shall be based on exterior walls, excluding fenestration, trims, and decorative elements. Permissible facade materials, high-quality facade materials, including but not limited to brick, stone, wood, panel, including painted or stained lap horizontal siding, vertical board, batten wood siding, and stucco. The prohibited facade materials include untreated concrete block, plywood, unfinished lumber, aluminum, textured T1-11, corrugated fiberglass, sheet metal, or tin siding, and any other materials determined by the city to be similar in nature or effect. So those are some additional conditions that was added. And again, this is just the material requirement that is going to be on the actual, elevations and how the product actually looks at the end. And so staff is requesting that Planning Commission likewise also recommend approval. I'm available if you have any questions, as well as the applicant is available.
At this time, Madam Chair, you'd ask if the commission has any questions of staff before seeking comment from the applicant?
Commission, do you want to share your thoughts on,
I have a few questions.
okay?
So this would be on the comprehensive plan amendment application. The 16 findings in the Land Development Code number 7, the proposed change will adversely influence living conditions in the neighborhood. And the city staff response is the proposed PUD zoning preliminary master plan will not adversely influence living conditions in the neighborhood, but more so improve the livability of the area by providing cross-access to local roads and a development of increased density in close proximity to a public school. So my question here is the part of that where it says providing cross-access to local roads. I did not see cross-access unless you're considering Street D to Robinson Avenue cross-access, or from Columbia to Fifth Street. Is that what that's referring to?
Yes, sir, that they are going to be providing more than one actual access point to their development that is going to connect to 2 of the local roads.
Okay, and I also see a road on the preliminary master plan where the letter E is on the top left corner of the plan. And it appears that there's a road, I don't know, it's called Indian Court maybe, or something like that in one of the existing subdivisions. Is it planned to make a connection of that extension into that subdivision?
Not at this time. They are providing, you can see they are providing some stub outs for future development. So should some of those developments come to fruition, and bring greater, roads and things like that, they are providing stub outs to those other areas though.
Okay. My next question is on number 8. The proposed change will create or excessively increase traffic congestion or otherwise affect public safety. And the staff response is that the 2 access points extending from Columbia and Fifth Street will help decrease traffic congestion on the local roads. Applicant has provided a traffic analysis which determined the rezoning of this property would generate 1,428 new trips daily, 95 trips during AM and 112 trips during PM peak hours. So I guess my question here is, how is that decreasing traffic congestion on the local roads?
Well, right now, all of the, so if they did not include those access points, the 2 access points, so it would not necessarily decrease, but then all of traffic would just go this way. So with them including these 2 access to their development, they're giving their potential residents multiple ways to get into the development, which will not just let the traffic run off on one road or the other.
Okay, so the statement about decreasing traffic is specific to this subdivision only, right?
Correct.
Okay, and then the traffic analysis said there was 1,428 new trips daily, 95 of them being during AM peak hours and 112 during PM peak. So the other remaining, I guess it's around 1,250 or so, would be during the day and night non-peak, I guess? Is that what that's saying?
So the traffic impact analysis, of course, is evaluated by our transportation manager. That is what the applicant provided to us. So when they do come to development, you know, to actually get into the subdivision construction plans, they're going to have to provide a more, a real traffic impact analysis that at that point is when it's going to be reviewed as far as what is going to be the impact on all of those public streets. This is all preliminary at this point.
Yeah,
So
understood.
we haven't gotten to the traffic impact analysis.
So when that report does get produced, can we get a copy of that, the planning commission?
Yes, and actually, this project being a PUD zoning, the traffic impact analysis will be due with the final master plan. That's the next step in this process. If they get preliminary master plan approval in the PUD zoning, they'll come back to this board and the council eventually with the final master plan, and you will have that traffic data at that point.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I had already mentioned this to city staff, but we did just get the preliminary master plan today when we showed up. We did not have advanced time to review it, and I would prefer if we in the future would get these preliminary master plans in advance so we can review them. It's just very difficult to review them in a few minutes while we're up here.
Correct, and so we can go back to sending those to you electronically, but I just do want to remind that the board requested that they be printed, so we provided them to you printed. So we can provide them to you electronic and printed going forward.
Okay, thank you.
Or even if it was a couple days ahead, we can always stop and pick them up.
That's no problem.
Do we know why they were so late?
Well, because the board requested that they come printed, so we printed them. But again, we can now provide them back electronic and printed as well.
That would be very good, thank you.
Any other questions of
I have one other question. It's really, I don't know if I should ask this. It's on the other application related to the number 3 on the comprehensive plan amendment. And it's the proposed change would materially alter the population density pattern and thereby increase or overtax the load on public facilities such as schools, utilities, streets, etc. And it says that the population would be approximately 535 persons, and that's based on 2.78 persons per dwelling. And it also says the Osceola County School District has determined impact on public schools would be between a 5 and 14% increase, and that increase would not substantially overtax the load on public facilities. So I did see on the preliminary master plan, it said that it was 48, it was estimated at 48 total students for the subdivision. And so if that's 10%, that would be approximately, that would mean that the school, I assume this is between elementary, high school, and middle school, but approximately 480 students would be 10% of that. So, I'm sorry, 48 students is 10% of 480. So I was just trying to figure out how that number is calculated and why it's such a large range of 5 to 14%. Maybe that's a question for the school board, I don't know, but.
Okay, so again, that is preliminary. That statement that is in your staff report came directly from the comments provided by the school board. So I can also send you, if you would like those comments separately, but that came directly from the school board based upon their review.
Okay. Yeah, I would like to see those
Yeah, so they
comments.
provided those numbers.
Okay.
just kind of, there may be other commission members that have questions for the staff. Otherwise, I don't know, the applicant is here, and then public comment as well.
I'm not, you have to point it out to me. Did we answer the question about the drainage ditch?
No, we did
No.
not.
Okay. You can handle that one. Okay.
Any questions from the audience? No, any questions
The
from,
rest of the commission have questions for the staff, if not
do
the
you have
applicant.
any questions?
I have a question about the drainage ditch for the applicant.
Drainage.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. State your name and
Yes.
address, please.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
evening. John Adams with RJ Whidden and Associates, 316 Church Street, Kissimmee. We're the planners for the project. Let me start off with the drainage ditch. Okay. The school board has advised us that ownership of that ditch is Osceola County. Now, we understand that there may be issues with maintenance, who's responsible. I don't have that answer tonight, but I can assure you the maintenance responsibility will show with your final master plan when that comes through for approval. But it is owned by Osceola County. Therefore, I can only presume it's Osceola County's responsibility, but they don't have a good history of a regular maintenance schedule. So I'm sure my client will be able to work something out. And you'll have that answer with the final master plan. I do want to just generally state that this property is currently owned by the school board. And the school board has declared this with the state as surplus property. So there will never be a school here, never be a school expansion. It will be sold, and there will be private development on this site. What we've created in proposing this pond is, I believe, what is not only compatible, but with the transportation improvements that we're putting in, the new roadway that we're putting in, we're going to help relieve some of the traffic congestion that's out there now. We also have provided stub outs for future development when, if adjacent properties to us redevelop, we have future connectivity and opportunity for that as well to help relieve some of the network. I am not stating we're going to fix all the problems. I'm stating we are going to help relieve some of the problems. That, along with our mobility fees, our impact fees, and the tax revenue that this generates, this project will generate, will help relieve some of that infrastructure issues. The architectural standards, that was new to us, but I do want to state for the record, as written, as spoken into the record by staff, my client is in agreement with that additional condition tonight. Given that, we are in agreement with staff's recommendation on both the CPA and the PD, and I'm available for any questions you may have.
Can the road, I think the developer, you're taking care of that, the 2 lanes, what was it the question was? The flood of the traffic into the 2-lane roads, that's what you were talking about, why you have the additional coming
What-
and going, the other, just address the traffic flow for me, please.
Yes, yes. Right now, Robinson goes down to Fifth Street, and there's a lot of congestion, as there is with every school.
Sat in it this morning, yes, sir.
Okay. What we are proposing is, we are proposing improvements to Robinson, and the school board and my client are working through those issues to get additional right-of-way if necessary on the school property. The school board is also redesigning their traffic loop on their property. But more importantly, we're extending Robinson up to a new connector road to Columbia. This will give all 4 sides, all the perimeters of the school site, a local road, which will help relieve that congestion. It's an alternate route for school drop-off for our residents as well. You will see the details of that in the TIA, the traffic impact analysis, which is due with your final master plan. And any improvements that are required to existing roads, existing infrastructure, or intersections, and the final design of these new roads that we're extending will be part of that final master plan based on that TIA, which is subject to review by your staff and by this board as well.
Are they looking at doing any traffic signals?
I can't answer that question. I don't know if any will be warranted, but if they're warranted, then there'll be signals, yes. That will be a subject for the TIA.
In the TIA, are they going to have an indentation on the road so when the school bus comes? Because that just gets hairy out there.
Okay, those type of details are the improvements necessary to the existing infrastructure, the existing roads that I was talking about earlier. All improvements will be identified
Okay.
through that TIA and then subject to approval by this recommendation of approval to this board and ultimately the city council for the final master plan. We just don't have those design details available to us now. It's a preliminary.
I don't believe it's required at this time on a preliminary master plan, but is there anything in this preliminary master plan that shows connectivity of the water drainage capture area and connecting to the lake or to any existing drainage?
It's not required, and I'm not an engineer, but I do know enough about engineering to be dangerous. So we are required not only to get city approval, we're required to get a permit from the South Florida Water Management District. We need to be able to demonstrate discharge, historic runoff, and not create any flooding problems. That's a permit condition from the district. So that will all be addressed with the drainage plan on the FMP, final master plan.
I only bring it up because it does not appear that there was space allocated on the preliminary master plan for a connection, unless it's underground
Well,
or something like
it's
that.
likely going to be piped, yes.
Right,
But
okay.
we are required to have a discharge, yes.
Yeah. Okay. But there's no information in the preliminary master plan
No,
about that
sir.
currently? Okay.
No, the only thing we have in the master plan is we're having a storm water pond. It's subject to final design based on geotechnical reports, water table, and discharge and historic flow on this property. That's all addressed at the FMP.
Does this master plan have a due date from all of us, to make the final and move on?
I believe we're scheduled for our first reading at the city council the 27th, next week. And then we're subject to a second reading. Pardon? Excuse me, I was corrected, May 25th.
The second reading.
Oh, second reading is May 25th. Yes, next Thursday is the first reading. Thank you. I'm glad they're here.
So since this is owned by the Osceola County School District, is this sort of a test run to see if this is something that could be viable here? Maybe that's a,
Well, as far as viability from a planning perspective, you heard Tisha mention, or staff mention, excuse me, this fits into the development pattern of your projected population base, which is mandated by the state, that you have to accommodate that projected population base. Also, being next to an activity center, the school, this is historically been a very compatible and desirable product next to an activity center, especially when we're creating some additional infrastructure to help relieve some of the existing problems.
okay, thank you.
That's it.
Any other questions for Mr. Adams at this time from the commission?
So I just,
Any questions from our
yes, I
commissioners?
do. I just want to make sure I understand. You're adding 2 roads to relieve congestion, but there's still 1,428 vehicles going to the same endpoints, they're still gonna end up Columbia and Lake Shore, or Columbia and 192, or Fifth Street and Canoe Creek.
Well,
That's
yes,
right?
sir.
Okay.
There's still a traffic impact anytime there's development, but again, with us creating this new network that doesn't exist, it helps distribute traffic in different patterns. And the addition of our mobility fees that we'll be paying, plus the tax revenue that development will generate, will bring dollars to the city to help maintain the infrastructure. And all those details will be on that final master plan and that TIA, which will also identify additional improvements to existing infrastructure.
Will you explain mobility tax to me?
Mobility tax,
Is that what
mobility
you just said?
fees.
Mobility fees, I'm sorry, you said mobility fees. Tax revenue, mobility
Yes,
fees.
yes. There's a methodology that's reviewed, what, every 2-3 years? You want to, I'm going to let staff speak to
Thank you.
that, so I don't
All right.
speak any heresy.
Hi, Erin Stark, Transportation Manager. The mobility fees are designed to not pay for the impact of projects, but to expand the capacity of multimodal systems beyond what the improvements that the project will be responsible for. So anything that is above and beyond what this project is responsible for, those mobility fees can fund. This project met with our staff on transportation as their very first meeting, before they ever came in for submittal to discuss what those concerns of the city were, to talk about the historical problems around the school. And we are looking at other planning programs. We're in the process of doing a transportation and mobility master plan now, where we're going to prioritize projects outside of developer improvements in a priority list for the expenditure of those funds. So we have several projects currently funded with mobility fees, but the identification of anything in the existing network that is deficient, we can spend those on as well.
So mobility fee is paid by the developer.
It is paid by the developer. If they make improvements above and beyond what they are responsible for, they will get mobility fee credits back for those improvements. So sometimes a project will be asked to B when they're responsible for A, and the delta between A and B, they essentially don't pay into the fund, and they quantify what they've expended for those above and beyond improvements. So that TIA is where that threshold is defined in the responsibility. And then beyond that, the city will pick up either the project or will incentivize the developer to make improvements above and beyond if there is a need locally that they're not technically responsible for.
Thank you.
I have another question while you're up here, if you don't mind. I see on the preliminary master plan, it says in the left-hand bottom corner, potential future connection to Jackson Memorial Road, subject to city obtaining required eminent domain. Is that currently being pursued by the city, or is that just something that it's considering pursuing in the future?
So there are existing local roads, if you can call them that, just west of here. They're in platted right-of-way, but they're not improved to urban local road standards. So there is a possibility that if someone were to redevelop that neighborhood, which my understanding is it's under almost all one ownership over there, that they may stub out and connect. Right now, there's a cul-de-sac, and their right-of-way terminates before the property line. So there would either need to be a redevelopment of that whole area, maybe to propose a similar product like this, where they would bring forward that right-of-way connection, or we have in our capital improvements program, we have money set aside for right-of-way acquisition. But currently, this particular connection, which is literally the length of 2 lots that were away from the right-of-way stub-out touching, is not on any particular CIP to be funded.
Okay. Thank you.
If I may add to that, once again, for the record, John Adams. That's the potential that we are providing. We can't control the private property.
Understood.
Off-site, but we are providing those opportunities to help even further relieve some of the existing network issues.
So for the top left corner, letter E, I know I'd asked city staff about it, but what, is there eminent domain required to connect that as well? Or is there an easement there that would be available? I'm just asking why it's shown on the preliminary master plan.
We believe there's an opportunity, we believe, not a commitment, there's more of an opportunity for redevelopment of that area than it is to the south, which is why we provided that stub out there as well. But is there an easement? Is there anything to connect to right now? The answer is no. It is private property.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, just a reminder, Madam Chair, members of the commission, so in calling for public comment, I will call the public, the individuals from the public that have submitted their forms. I'll call
Okay.
them in that order.
Thank
They'll be
you, sir.
contained in the file. If you wish to speak before the commission and you haven't filled out a form, please do so either before or after you've presented your comments to the commission. Members of the commission, just a reminder, this is public comment. You're not here to answer questions. You're to receive feedback. There may be issues that are broached that staff and/or the applicant may wish to respond to at the conclusion of their presentation. But you're to take the public comment as it comes, and I will, with your permission, go ahead and start to call forward those that have submitted forms, okay? So the first individual that wishes to speak, David Woods, 3113 4th Street. Just come to the podium, identify yourself and state your name and address and make a presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is David Woods, 3113 4th Street, St. Cloud, Florida, resident of St. Cloud for 34 years. Mr. Lantry, I know you cited the Land Code Development 3.4.3.C.2.A, items 3, 7, 8, and 15, and I think they do merit a lot more consideration. The proposed change would materially alter the population density pattern and thereby increase and overtax the load on public facilities. Number 7, the proposed change will adversely influence living conditions in the neighborhood. It will. The proposed change will create or excessively increase traffic congestion or otherwise affect public safety. Even though they're going to build roads and access and redo this and that, you're still looking at a potential, they're making parking spaces for 841 cars in that area. That's going to be a lot more traffic regardless of how many connector roads you put. It's still going to go out on Lakeshore, Columbia, and end up on 192. More traffic. Whether the change suggested is out of scale with the needs of the neighborhood or the city. All the surrounding zoning in that area is R1, R1A, R1B, or MHA. All single residents around the whole perimeter of that property. I realize the school board wants to sell the 25 acres, and I know it's pie in the sky, but it'd be better suited for green space or a park or something like that. If not, it should be at a minimum single residential dwellings. PUD with 198 townhomes and parking for 800-plus cars is way too much additional traffic congestion. More burden on police, fire, water, sewer. The newly elected council members all had campaign rhetoric about reining in development. They will definitely be held accountable April 27th when we bring this up. You mentioned that the architectural and design review plans would not affect them, that will affect them as of now. But at the meeting 4 days ago, I asked a specific question, and no, it will not, because they've submitted their plan before the review was approved. So they don't have to meet the new architectural designs. That's what I was told at the meeting on the 14th. Let's see. And you said something about only 2.5 people in each unit? That's, I mean, come on. There's going to be 4 or 5 people living in there, families, kids, they'll probably rent these places out, rent another room out, bring more people in. I talked about the 800 cars. Additional traffic, it's still going to go all those places. And it sounds like the master plan will not be ready by 4/27. There's been too many questions about it, and I don't see how it's going to be ready for the meeting on the 27th.
Thank you, sir, for your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, the next form is Karen and Jack Seddon. I apologize if I'm not stating the name right. 3114 Garden Court.
To avoid any confusion, this is Karen, I'm Jack. Go ahead.
Well, I'm Karen, and I come emotionally to you. We live just behind Dave. Dave faces this whole property. We just recently built a prayer garden, a meditation garden, and a praise garden. And it's so beautiful, and it's so quiet. And we look out over this beautiful property, and you cannot tell me that many people, it's not even a benefit to them. How do you live in such close quarters and not make yourselves crazy? You know, it's going to impact all of those little houses. We're all just little houses all around that whole community. We so love St. Cloud. That's not St. Cloud, and I know we have to grow. I understand all that. But I know when Dave presented a long time ago, Dave Adams, I think that's your name, sir? John Adams. John said to us that in St. Cloud, it was a 1.7 per person, per home on an acre, and it's gone up to 3. So at the most, 25 acres could have no more than 75 homes. What's with 198? I don't understand.
Yeah, and you got an inherent danger right there. I mean, look at all these places that share a common roof. Somebody starts a fire by accident, and all those people on that whole line are wiped out. If they had single-family homes, that wouldn't even be an issue. You know, but they share a common roof, and it's a recipe for disaster. And why can't you build something where the parking lots anywhere else in St. Cloud, especially in this general area? There's no parking lots. We have driveways. But they want to put in 800 and some cars, and they're saying, well, we got a problem, but we got a fund. How much is in that fund? There's no specifics. Is there $100? So in case the city says, you know, we need a stop sign? Or is there $1 million to where they can do some real work? We get general statements from these people, general statements. That is not a general statement. That's a recipe for disaster. But, you know, I was kind of against this, but they're going to put in a cabana. So I guess that changes that. Now, maybe I'm for it. But I'm sorry. I'm being cynical, and I'm a little bit emotional right now. And this is just a exercise in futility.
I just want to say one last thing, if I could. I purposely prayer walk that property every day, and it's only an act of God that will make it something more beautiful. And so I ask you please not to approve this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, the next form I have is, I believe I'm reading this correctly, Tim and Randy Caines.
Tim or Randy?
I'm sorry, all right, I'm sorry,
I
sir.
go by both. Timothy or
I apologize.
Randall, and I go by Tim or Randy.
State your name and address.
I live
Thank
at
you, sir.
2950 Cool Breeze Circle, St. Cloud, Florida. We've been here 27 years. And
It's okay.
you want to start over?
No, you're okay. Somebody just pushed the wrong button.
We've been here 27 years. My son graduated from Lakeview, and he ended up and went through school here. We've lived in that community. We've loved that community. Just take care of this problem. Say no. Too many ifs, ands, whats may happen. You're going to get a kid killed with that plan right there, because I've seen it in California, because I moved out of California to get away from mess like that. You have to just say no. I understand we need the money. We need to have end up in property for people. If you're gonna do anything, don't bring in townhomes, they're apartment buildings. Bring in the houses just like we have at Lakeview Village 1, Village 2, and take care of the property. I know the county, I know the Independence City are not gonna maintain that. A developer says they may take care of it. I've also ended up and been sitting there and watched floods come all the way up through that easement, and Blackberry is flooded for years. If you're gonna do anything, you don't ever end up in more cars on Columbia. You don't put more cars on Fifth Street. If you're gonna do anything, you make them go off to Brown Chapel, and then you put a light in at Brown Chapel and Lakeview, and Lakeshore. Because eventually, when they open Lakeshore back up again, the rest of us can't even get out of our community to go to work in the mornings. We sit there for 5, 10 minutes at a time, just trying to make a left-hand turn out of there. And you're gonna put 400 plus more cars? And like the gentleman said, you're not gonna have 1 or 2 people living there. There's gonna be 4 or 5 people living in every community unit that they put out there. And then they're gonna bring in their friends, and then we're gonna have all the other things that goes along with it. Our law enforcement community is overtaxed now. I can't get them to respond to a call for sometimes 45 minutes. How long is it gonna take them with another set of end-up-in problems? Please, just deny their end-up on their plan until they can show us something. And city people that don't live in that area need to go out there and stay out there during the peak hours and try to end up and navigate our homes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I don't have any other forms, so you can call for any further public comment, and
Anybody else?
if you wish to
Please come up,
please make
state-
sure to fill out a form at your
Yeah.
conclusion of your
State your name and your address,
My
please.
name's John Blair, and I live at 300 Chancellor Court. That's in my backyard. That's in my face backyard. I'm going to be looking at those parking lots and these houses. I live in a single-family home. They're going to be towering over my house. That's going to be so ugly. That's not, Robinson Road is just right down the street. There's an overflow pond outside my house that just yesterday almost overflowed. That gully that they're talking about runs right down behind my neighbor's house. That thing fills up during the summer, every summer. Likes to overflow because that's what it does. It takes all the water that comes down from Columbia, I'm sorry, not Columbia, but Fifth Street, Chancellor. It gets a lot of water. You don't even show that on there. That's all gone. I mean, I just wanted to tell you that I don't like this. I do like the idea of the single homes and stuff like that. I know the school wants to sell the property, and that's fine. But that is a disaster. Looking for a spot to happen. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? From the public to speak? Go ahead.
Cases are being presented in tandem, so this is the one opportunity for anyone from the public. If you wish to speak, this is the time. Okay? You can open it back up to Mr. Adams and or the staff for any follow-up questions or comments.
All questions
Thank
and
you.
comments. You're welcome.
Once again, for the record, John Adams, R.J. Woodman Associates. I do want to address a few things generally that I heard. First of all, there was some question about the product, the townhome product. Townhomes are not apartments. They are fee simple, single-family ownership. Right on Fifth Street, 2-3 blocks away, there's townhomes. There's townhomes in Turtle Creek with single-family homes. There's townhomes that are actually required and mandated in your mixed-use district, Cahokia, Edgewater. There's even apartments a few blocks away to the southwest of this property, which are multifamily. But we are proposing townhomes, a single-family fee-simple ownership. They're not apartments. They've been building townhomes for many years, and it's not a fire hazard because the building code requires firewalls and It is absolutely compatible and, quite frankly, desirable to have a variety of product in the urban development. As far as the questions that can't be answered, that's because your code is set up the way it is. This is a preliminary master plan. We're not coming in with final designed engineering plans or transportation studies. There's another step that requires that. That's how your code is set up. The issue about the aesthetics and the parking lots, quite frankly, it's my opinion that the city overparks. Their parking requirement is too high. You require 4.5 parking spaces per unit. We comply with that. To do that, we have parking lots. But in consideration of our neighbors, we have committed to some very significant buffering and landscaping around the perimeter of our product. Even in Mr. Wood's case, my client has agreed to enhance landscaping on the south side of 4th Street. In front of those properties on 4th Street, the 3-4 homes that are there. This is compatible. You, as every other jurisdiction in the state of Florida, is mandated by the state, comprehensive laws, to have development accommodate projected growth. And as your staff has written and testified, this is compatible. It is compatible with the area, with the exception of the small sliver on 4th Street. Everything else around us is medium-density residential land use. So I would just reiterate that we are compatible. The population base, I don't make those numbers. It's 2.78. That's based on census data. Some of the other speculative comments we heard will be addressed with final master plan and final development plans. The drainage issues will be permitted not only by the city, but by the South Florida Water Management District. And my client's engineer has already been working with the South Florida Water Management District for about 3 months to make sure we address all of the off-site issues and don't create any problems off-site, as would be a permit condition anyway. I'm available to answer any more questions.
I have one more question for you.
Yes, sir.
I was going to ask you this earlier, but I forgot. The cabana and barbecue in that area, will that have public access or only residents?
No, the
What's the plan
liability
there?
issues won't allow public access to those facilities, the pool, the cabana. However, the lakefront park and trail, it will be open to the public. But there will be a key access for the recreation facilities.
Okay.
Will it be a gated community?
No, these are all public, well, we believe they're going to be public roads,
Not gated.
but we're not allowed to have gates. We don't want gates. Well, my client might want them, but we can't have them.
What is the anticipated square footage of these units?
If you give me a moment, I'll try to get an answer for you. $1,400 to $1,600 square feet, and they're all 3-bedroom townhomes.
Is there any anticipated cost for the units?
I'm not sure that's relevant, especially with the market the way it goes today.
It's fluctuating a lot, I know.
But I can tell you just from historically, and I'm not a builder, but historically, it's very difficult to put any product on the ground right now for, I mean, I'm going to say 300, maybe it's high 200s. But building is expensive right now. but it's subject to market conditions.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think you stated it, but how much is the parking per unit? How many?
Your code requires 4.5 spaces per unit. Now, I don't know anybody's got 4.5 cars, but there's some,
But I know a lot of people who have a lot of friends to come to visit.
yes.
Well, some people's trucks are as long as 2 cars.
Well, that's
So-
true as well. Mine isn't, but it's longer than a Prius, I guess.
So that's cumulative between the street parking and the parking lots that they're
Yes.
providing?
Yes, the code, we're gonna have 1-car garage in each unit, whether they're front or rear load, plus a driveway. So that accounts for 2 spaces, so there's 2.5 spaces on street or in the parking lots. But again, those parking lots and the entire perimeter of this project, we've agreed to some very significant landscape buffering. 6-foot vinyl fence that already exists on our west and a portion of our north property line. We're extending that 6-foot vinyl fence and putting landscaping in. So those parking lots will be screened and, well, the whole perimeter will be screened with landscaping. And those landscape detailed plans, which is not a question for this one, but you're required on your final master plan to show some landscape plans.
What kind of space are we talking around the walking trail between the properties that or that are along the water management area and the water? What kind of space is that there for the walking trail?
Sure you're,
It's just, it's
Staff
probably
is-
on here somewhere. I can't.
I'm sure your
It's difficult
staff
to
is going to want a 10-foot trail. But that's the other thing that I did miss, and I don't know why, I should have. Not only do we have front and rear load townhomes, we also have some of these townhomes that are actually designed on a muse on that lakefront park. So they're actually facing that lakefront park. That's not something you see commonly. That comes with an additional cost to a developer, but they're doing that to create that variety of product. It'll also enhance some of the value of the property, of the units themselves. So I'm sure those details will be on the final master plan as far as dimensional criteria, but the trail is going to be a 10-foot walking trail.
Okay, thank you.
And I did want to clear up one other thing, I'm sorry. I think Mr. Woods brought it up as far as the confusion about the architectural standards. 4 days ago, I didn't know we were subject to the architectural standards. I didn't know about that until tonight. As it was written into the record here as a special condition, we are agreeing to adding that special condition on the architectural standards as it was written in. So we are subject to what staff read into the record earlier. Any further questions?
Any questions from the public again?
No, Ms. Carney, it'd be questions from the commission to Mr. Adams or questions for staff at this time. If not, you'd then close the public hearing
Okay.
for discussion. Does the commission have any other questions for Mr. Adams or for staff?
No.
I don't have any other questions.
If-
I don't either.
If none, then, Madam Chair, you'd close the public portion of the meeting, the public discussion, rather, so that the commission can confer amongst each other. It gives me an opportunity to remind the commission, you're an advisory commission, you're making a recommendation to city council on these 2 items. You're going to be guided by the presentation from staff, from Mr. Adams, the applicant, and from the public comment, and then your collective, what you each collectively bring to your experience and the decision, guided by the factors of the Land Development Code as is contained in your staff reports. All right? So with that, you can discuss amongst yourselves, and when ready, Madam Chair, you can call for a motion, but you'll go in order on the cases. So when you're ready to start taking motions, we'll call the cases in order so it's clear on the record which motion pertains to which case.
Commissioners?
I have some items for discussion.
Can I
go
interrupt the
ahead.
board just one moment? I just want to make a clarification. In regards to the architectural standards, the ordinance that passed on the 13th is going to go into effect July 1st for certain types of development. For PUDs, we are able, it was effective, we were able at that time to implement certain parts of that ordinance for PUDs, specifically the material requirements. So this project is not subject to the entire residential standards of that ordinance, but just certain sections, and the material requirements is one of them.
Ms. Manning, if I could ask, just, this is going to go before council at what date, the next date?
April 27th.
So a week from this Thursday, it will come up before the council?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so, going to share my opinions with the rest of the
Okay.
commission. There are some things I really like about this design and this idea, right? Typically, in my opinion, it's a good idea to have higher density close to a school, right? Because kids can walk to school, which is safer. It requires less people driving to the school. I also like the streets, D and Robinson, and the additional access that they provide to the school property. Also, just in general, we are in need in the city of more density, I feel, in certain places, because we need obviously more housing, more affordable housing, and then also, I like the idea of putting, medium density near schools. But with that being said, the concern I have with this particular project and this preliminary master plan is drainage, is my number one concern here. We've all seen what happened after the last hurricanes and this area and the flooding that it experienced. And if you look at the patterns of how some of these subdivisions around this property were designed, many of them were designed to drain into adjacent vacant land, right? And I don't know for sure, exactly how the drainage patterns occur here, but just by looking at, Google Maps or this map here, it appears that the density and the intensity of this particular development would impede drainage of the surrounding area. And although I like the idea and I like the design, I can't put people that are already in the area in harm's way in terms of flooding water and that sort of thing, in my opinion. So that's where I'm at.
Madam Chair, may I address that?
But, Madam Chair, it's up to you and the commission if you want to take any further comment, because you're in the discussion portion.
Yeah.
So now,
It's open.
Let us
Go ahead.
continue all of our discussion, and maybe there'll be something we want to get clarity on. How about that?
Yeah, that sounds good.
I will echo what you're saying, because, again, knowing that there is a need, as sad as it is, and I know that we all loved St. Cloud, that's why we moved here, again, 50-plus years myself. We need more housing, and I do agree with it being closer to the school. The other part is the tax revenue generation, the mobility fees. I mean, there's a lot that is a plus for it. Again, we wrote the code. The code says we have to allow for population growth, and to address the other fixes is the other part. I would have to say that the other fixes have got to be things like the drainage situation. And it's bad now. If they do nothing, it's still going to be bad. Whereas the other fixes would be what I would hope that would be. And that would be maybe a recommendation we can make or something. But that's the points that you make. I think I echo all of those. And the fact that they're going to readdress the loop in the school. My children went to that school, so I definitely know everything they're talking about as well. They were to be able to fix what was happening there. I think that's a welcome change.
Now, it's possible that there could be a version of this master plan that would allow for some better drainage patterns and things like that. I don't see it, and I know at this time it's not required, right? And so I know that's kind of difficult to hold somebody to that. It's just that the design that I see before me and what would be available for drainage in the surrounding communities. It concerns me.
I guess, I agree in terms of the drainage concerns. My other concern would be in regards to the controls on traffic flow, you know, in and out of the community, which I realize that's a study that's still in the future pending, I guess, but it's a lot, it's a lot of vehicles, you know, coming, going with only 2 entryways and.
But we're still going to have a lot of vehicles coming and going in St. Cloud, folks, with no fixes. If they're able to fix it and adjust things, that's
That's
the
exactly what
key.
I'm bringing up, I think it needs to be something that's addressed with it, and perhaps signals, or, you know, they need patterns of flowing. It seems like, unfortunately, we've had way too many new housing communities come in, you know, and no adding of signals or things that are gonna aid in the traffic flow for the amount of increase in density that they're bringing.
So to that point, I have a question for staff about a future comprehensive master plan. I don't know what the plan date is for creating a new master plan, but my question is that the state statutes allow for transportation concurrency if it's included in the comprehensive master plan. Is there any plans of the city of St. Cloud to include transportation concurrency in the revised new comprehensive master plan?
Mr. Lancer, if I could, just with respect to the applicant and the members of the public, that might be a bit abroad from where we are on these 2 cases. I understand the relevance in one respect.
That's
but
true.
a
It's not
discussion
really
that-
relevant to this
It's really a discussion
particular
that's
case.
outside of the scope of tonight's application, the matters considered before this.
And I
commission.
can ask that outside of this.
Certainly some, yeah.
Case review.
I do want to keep the commission on point with regard to the cases.
However, although I do agree with you, it's not related to this case.
Sure.
It is in some way related to every future case that comes through here. And it's becoming a more increasing problem, because what do we hear from residents every time we have a case? Traffic, right? That's everybody's biggest concern, is how many cars are coming in and out? How do we fit these cars on the road? Everybody's already sitting in traffic. We've all been on the Turnpike. We've all been on Canoe Creek Road, 192. And I understand that it's not any one applicant's job or responsibility to address that, but I think that it's important that the applicants and the city and everybody think about that as we move forward and we try to grow. We have to do this responsibly.
Clearly
So
agree.
that's how it's related in my,
Well,
to this.
traffic is related in terms of the criteria under the Land Development Code, that's your guidepost, no question. But as it relates to this property, as opposed to the broader discussion of any changes in the plan and so forth. And those guideposts in the Land Development Code, the 16 factors, that's your guide, that's your guidepost. You have to take the information that's been objectively presented to you, apply your own knowledge and experience with it, and the feedback, and come to whatever recommendations for the council you're going to collectively come to. You're all voting members tonight. All 5 of you have to vote, so you'll be participating in the entire process.
I guess we can invite Mr. Adams up to talk about, address some of my comments and
Yes,
other
just,
comments.
thank you again, for the record, John Adams, R.J. Wooden and Associates, and I'll be very brief. I just want to readdress the drainage. You will see a final stormwater drainage plan with the final master plan. You will also see a requirement that we get a permit from the South Florida Water Management District. One of their criteria is that we have to look at historic flows from off-site onto our property, and we have to accommodate that, whether we make our pond larger, our pipes to the discharge larger. That is all part of not just the city's review, but also the South Florida Water Management District. We, by permit, will not be allowed to create drainage problems off-site. So I just want you to take that into consideration, and with the final master plan, you will see a stormwater management plan.
Okay, thank you.
I want to interject something for the commission and seek staff's affirmation or correction from me on my comment. I don't believe the commission here tonight, this commission, in the ordinary course of the presentation of the final master, is going to see the final master. I think that goes to the council, but not to the commission. Am I incorrect about that, Ms. Manning?
Tisha Manning, Senior Planner, correct. The final master plan will go before City Council.
Yes, so I don't want the commission to think that that's going to come back before you or anyone in this room. And I understand what you're saying, Mr. Evans, but I want to make that clarification.
And forgive me for
It's okay.
misinterpreting your code, but that's correct. It will go to the city council for final approval.
But the point is, it
Yes.
will be presented for approval. It won't be before the five of you. This is your moment to address these items as they're presented here tonight. So,
Come on, Phil.
if there's further discussion, closing back up the public discussion, if there's further discussion amongst the commission, certainly engage. If not, then move forward.
Any further discussion?
I was just looking at the buffer zone and how far away these townhomes will be from the existing homes in the area, the heights of them, and what's separating those. Because number 7 says a proposed change will adversely influence living conditions in the neighborhood. There's already residents all around it, and that's totally different from what they're living in already, the surrounding homes and area.
May I address?
Yes, sir.
Again, for the record, John Adams, R.J. Wooden Associates. All of these townhomes will be two-story. There will not be any higher than two-story. We have committed to significant landscape buffering and a 6-foot PVC fence to augment the fence that's already there. Those landscape details will be part of that final master plan, but I believe one of the conditions in the staff report speaks to the planting requirements. And that will be not just at the parking lots, that'll be on the perimeter of the property.
So how far away from the actual edge of the townhome to the next home, say on the west side? Because scaling, it looks real close, like 10 or 15 feet. I don't know if the scale's wrong.
We're proposing a 20-foot buffer, and then there's a 25-foot setback on the townhome lot. So that's 45 feet to the property line.
All right.
Anybody else have any questions or something? Points?
If there's no further discussion, Madam Chair, then you can ask the commission for someone to present a motion. Remember now, we're going to take the items in order chronologically off the agenda, so when you're ready,
Okay.
we can call the case for or whoever's making the motion should identify the case when they move forward with their motion. Don't forget that the Land Development Code factors have to be considered, and staff and applicant also had agreed upon the stated conditions that have been presented as part of the discussion.
I didn't see any stated conditions.
They weren't in the report. It was stated on the open
Oh,
record
right.
by Ms. Manning and agreed to by Mr. Adams on behalf of his applicant, of his client.
Anybody want to?
Are you calling for a motion, Madam Chair?
A motion, a comment,
Calling
motion?
for a motion?
I would like to make a motion.
Thank you.
Please state which case it is for Mr. Lantry so we're clear on the record.
Yes.
Are we going to put them together?
No, each case will have to be voted upon
Identified.
separately by way of motion
Okay.
and so forth.
So I would like to make a motion on DRC case CPA 22-00009. I would like to make a motion to recommend denial of ordinance number 2023-20 based on the 16 findings within the Land Development Code. More specifically, because I do not agree with staff on some of the findings, some of the 16 findings.
So the motion has been made.
Motion.
You'd call for a second, Madam Chair?
We call for the second one.
Once the motion is seconded, then the commission can discuss the motion and/or take a vote.
Do we want to discuss the motion?
Well,
I
you
second
call
the
for a
motion.
second. You second the motion. So the motion has now been seconded. So now it's
There you
open
go.
and proper for either further discussion amongst the commission, or if no further discussion, Madam Chair, you'd call for a vote on the motion. The motion is to recommend denial of the proposed transition from public institutional to medium-density residential based on the concerns within the land development code that Mr. Lantry identified.
Everybody?
Is there any discussion on that motion, or are you ready to
Discussion on it?
vote? Okay, you can call for a vote, Madam
Somebody
Chair.
call for motion.
Madam Chair, you call for the vote. You say, all those in favor of the motion would say aye, and that motion again is to recommend denial.
All those in favor, call
Aye.
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 All those,
Aye.
okay.
Hold on, she was thinking. All those in negative? No?
All those opposed to the motion would say nay.
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 Okay, so I believe it was the vote, the motion carries 3-2. Ms. Douglas, Mr. Alexander, and Mr. Lantry voted aye, is that correct?
That's
Correct.
correct.
Okay,
3-2.
so now the second item, so that recommendation is for denial based upon the reasons stated. And now the ordinance, item B would be the next agenda item to take up as a commission.
So item B, DRC case PUD 22-00003. This is a PUD zoning and preliminary master plan, and I would like to make a motion to recommend denial of ordinance number 2023-21 based on the 16 findings within the Land Development Code, and once again, because I do not agree with some of the city's findings in those 16 items.
Second.
Motion's been seconded, Madam Chair. Any discussion on the motion?
Is there any discussion on the motion?
If there's none, then you call
No.
for a vote.
Okay. The vote?
The vote would be all in favor of the motion, which is to deny the PUD and preliminary master, would signify by saying aye.
You all need to say aye if you want it, or nay if you don't want
The
it.
vote,
Aye.
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 those that say nay.
Nay.
Motion passes 3-2. It's recommendation for denial 3-2 on both items, which will be heard before City Council on Thursday, April 27th. Okay. Ms. Hughes, do we have anything further on the agenda?
No, the next meeting will be May 16th at 6 PM.
And if I can make a comment, if all the people in the audience don't know, the city council meets on the Thursday. You can watch it on TV too, on $4.99, and make notes and everything.
I believe there's also a link on the city website.
Yeah,
That you can access.
Correct. You'll have a great evening, and thank you for attending. We do appreciate you.
Madam Chair, there's nothing further on the agenda that we have.
If there's nothing further to the agenda, we have closed for the night.
Adjourned. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for watching.